Okay, so good to have you guys in this video. We're going to look at functions, but what I want to emphasize in this particular video is that, don't be sidetracked or sidelined by the verbose or the terminology that you're going to encounter in this video. I want you to take functions as just a tool that you can use in your daily life as a programmer. Approach this as a concept that can actually help you in your day-to-day life. All right, so let's jump into our functions and see what functions are and how best you can use them. Okay, so the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what is a function? So a function over here in Sololin, they define it as a group of related statements that perform a specific task. Okay, so I want to illustrate this. All right, so let me use red so that you guys can actually see what's happening. And so what we need is, let's say I have this box over here. Right, so this is my function, right? So what I will have over here, I can have some inputs here, right? I can have some inputs, whatever inputs that I might have. And then, obviously, I'll have an output here, right? So this is an illustration of how a function works, okay? So you might have inputs or you might not have inputs. You might design a function whereby it just does a certain thing. So it's some kind of a tool that you design, all right? So how do you design it? You use lines of code, okay? You group related statements and then, according to how you want it to perform. I'm going to introduce you to two types of functions that we'll encounter. The first one is what we call built-in functions. Built-in functions, okay? And then the second type is what we call user-defined functions. Okay, so there are two types that we encounter mostly. There could be other types, but I'll focus on these ones. All right, so today we're going to focus on what we call built-in functions. So from the word go, when we started learning Python, we were using functions. One of them is this popular print function. All right, so how do I know this is a function? You normally see a name and then followed by these parentheses, So this tells me this is a function. All right, so what's the function of the print function? All right, so what's its task? The print function is supposed to print something out, right? So let's say I want to print my name. I could just say Sadson and then save and run. You'll see down here, I printed Sadson. So what will happen if we didn't have this function? Let's say I try print Sadson. Let's say I try to just print directly, save and run. I don't have any error, but I cannot see Sadson down here. So the print function has a job, as a task to print out whatever you want out on the console, out on the screen. Okay, so you have this print function. So who made this print function? This is built in, okay? It comes bundled in Python. Somebody somewhere had to make it, and then, they had to give us this as a building block, like the basic building block, the basic foundation where we can then, improve and build our programs on. So these are the kind of functions. So among them, we have the print function. We also encountered the range function, right? Anything that you find with a name followed by parentheses, it's a function. Okay, so these are some of the built-in functions that we have in Python. All right, so what goes into these parentheses? All right, we call them arguments. Okay, so right now, the print function accepts arguments, or it might not require arguments. Okay, so let me try and run this, save and run. Right now, the print function is okay. It didn't give any error. But then the range function down here, you see, it says type error. It says range expected at least one argument, but it got 0. We didn't pass any arguments into the range function, so that's why we had an error. So some functions are created so that, whenever you use them, you should provide some inputs, okay, into the function. So the way we provide those inputs is by passing them into these parentheses. Right, so let's now pass in a 10. Save and run. Yeah, now it's running. But then of course, you cannot just say range 10. You have to print it out. If I want to see it, now that's where I need the print function. So I'm passing a function into another function. So as you can see, guys, right now I have range 0 to 10, right? So this is how functions work. Basically, a function should accept an input and then process that input and then gives you an output. Okay, so this is how functions work. So we said we can pass in arguments into the function. All right, how many arguments are in this function? This function is a range function. It has got 0, 100, 5. So how many arguments? We said whatever we pass into this function, inside these parentheses are what we call arguments. So how many arguments are here? As you guys can see, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3 arguments, right? Are separated by commas. So you can have a function which can take many arguments separated by commas. Yeah, it's possible. So in here, there are 3 arguments. And so if we check it out, you see this is correct. All right, so in our next lesson, we're going to look at list functions. All right, so I want to thank you for your time. I hope to see you in our next video. For now, I'm out. Bye-bye.